what people don't understand with actually following through on your dreams and your thing, it's actually going to be hard. It's meant to be hard, and you're meant to get resistance. But a lot of people get the resistance and just run away, and they quit basically. But you're actually, every time you get met with resistance, you're about to learn something quite good about yourself. You just have to bear with it.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks
for inviting me.
Yeah, it's taken some time, but we're here. I like to start the podcast with a pertinent question, given we're in a sauna. I'm about to sweat all over the floor and make a mess. What's the sweatiest you've ever been?
Yeah, so I had to have a big think about that question when you asked me, but because to be honest, I was in the army, and I would say the whole career I was just like sweaty. I was based up in Townsville. Yeah. But there's one particular instance, but like living in Townsville, you know what Townsville is? It's like up in the tropics. And we would train in the middle of the day, and you're just literally like walking around sopping wet all the time. I remember one day in particular, we had to do training with a gas mask, essentially. We had to go into a room full of gas, take our masks off, and that would pull the snot and everything out of our face, and then we had to put the mask back on. And inside the gas tent, and then we had to go back outside. But that day that we did it as well, we did it a few times, but that one particular day, it would have been mid-30s to 40s and 100% humidity, like middle of the day. And our higher ups, section commanders, just to be assholes, basically got us to put it on. And before we went into the tent, we did basically 2.4 kilometers. Played a game of touch football.
Oh my gosh.
And we had like, not just that, we had like these smocks on, so they're like this thick.
Okay.
They're like, you'd be like boiling in winter.
What are they for?
Just to protect you from like the gas.
Okay.
So we had to wear them, and then with the gas mask on, and like play touch football, run in this like crazy hot sun. And then we took it off. It was just everywhere. Like it just kept going, the sweat. So yeah, that's the one that sticks out.
So do you have to take the gas mask off before you went into the gas room?
No. There was a few things. So there was one where we did that, where we actually had to walk in.
Yeah.
And then put the gas mask on and seal it all up. And there was another one where we'd go in there, and they'd go, all right, take it off. And you'd be like, and like, keep it off for a minute, and then let's put it back on. And then, yeah, it was all about like not panicking.
Yeah.
Because what was the gas? AV gas, something. I can't remember the name of it, but it would just screw up your sinuses, and just snot would start coming out your face. It wasn't like going to kill you or anything.
Like tear gas or something.
Something like that. It was actually similar to tear gas.
Yeah.
It's like the modern version. So
yeah,
it was pretty funny. And then like they'd ask you questions, so you take it off, and they'd ask you questions like, say your name, and you get people like going, like they just couldn't speak. Everyone just laughed. And they're like, no, put it back on. So, yeah.
That's hectic.
Yeah.
How long were you in the army for?
About 6 years.
Yeah. Okay. And was there a lot of, like, commanders making you do crazy stuff like that?
Yeah. Like, it was part of the fun as well. Like, it was kind of funny at some stage. Like, they're just trying to sort of build your character, see what you can handle. Another time, I remember when I was going through training, we had a sergeant, and he basically, we stuffed something up. So he got us to run up the hill and then run back, and then he got us to get out all that, those little like cereal box things, that you pull open and you pour the milk in and stuff. Yeah. Eat one of those, and then run up and back again. Come back, eat another one, run up and back again. So the whole platoon was basically spewing up. It was just stupid things like that all the time. It's just character building, basically.
The idea is like, it's like with the SEALs, right? They want to make you so uncomfortable that when you're in battle, it's not as uncomfortable. Is that the idea?
Yeah. It's essentially seeing what your thresholds are. Can you keep concentration and focus on what you're doing in the face of setbacks, and like being really just put under the pump. They're just trying to see like what your threshold is. Do you crack? What do you do? Do you get angry? Do you get pissed off? That means you're gonna not gonna focus on the mission. So. It was funny though. I would laugh half the time, and then they'd get upset because I was laughing.
Were you like, were you as educated as you are now on like all the psychology behind that sort of stuff then?
I had no idea.
Right.
I was young, very young. Like, I used to look at the older guys and go, why do they seem like it just seems a lot easier for them? Like, I didn't find it physically that hard, but mentally it was quite challenging. Trying to get, perform all the time, and you're under pressure a lot. But the older guys seem to just cruise through it. And it's because they had life experience. They understood the world, and they're probably a bit more intelligent. So yeah, it's coming up. I think it's that peppermint. It's bringing it up.
It's all happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. If I knew what I knew now about the body and what they were doing to us, I'd just be like, man, you're actually making us worse. Like you might think you're making us stronger, but you're actually dampening down our effects as soldiers and our abilities. And you're not like there's a lot has changed in that area in the last probably 10 to 15 years anyway. So.
Is for a lot of people it sounds like they're just going to be in such a stressed state when they're doing those kind of things. I feel like especially young kids, like if something comes up, then they're like, oh, like I can't like feel that thing now or have that thought because I need to like run to the top of this hill and not vomit and think I'm hopeless. And then I feel like even if they get through it, they're not necessarily addressing those thoughts.
No. They're just doing it. They're just getting on with it. They're surviving basically, just doing whatever you can to get to the next thing.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean like I'm sure in those moments like some really like deep down stuff is coming up about who they are as people.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But like are they really addressing that or are they just pushing through it and
just pushing through it?
Yeah.
Typical. Yeah. And you see it with the guys that come out and they don't adapt to the real world. They still want to be that type of person and don't keep evolving, and then they get stuck and they either stay in or they do something similar or they just keep drinking and stuff like that. So,
it's interesting. We've had some good conversations off air about, especially even with me personally, about things that have gone on and go on in our lives when we're young and how that affects our thoughts and actions and decisions that we make later on in life. Like, why are we all so fucked up?
Why are we all so fucked up? Well, it's pretty interesting actually, because I was actually listening to a podcast I finished today by listening to it over the last few days, and it was with a guy who specializes in inherited trauma. So this is an area that I was sort of always aware of, but he brought up some really cool things, and he brought in a lot of the science to it as well. I think this guy was a psychologist. I'll have to tell you what it is, but he basically, there's a lot of research coming out about just in our genetics, in our genes. Say if your grandparent had some trauma from the war or something like that, there's a very high likelihood that when you're born, your cells and your mitochondria, your genes can be encoded with that trauma. So just through DNA transmission and from the parents. So you're essentially not born with a clean slate. We think, when we're born, we come in and we're all good to go. We just slide into a body and then obviously the process of growing and even having, coming out of the birth canal is trauma, but there is also some inherited trauma as well. And anything that happened in the womb is a factor as well. So I thought that was quite interesting. And you see it a lot, and it makes a lot of sense as to why people can't understand what's wrong. That's one angle. That's one angle, and I think that's an angle to actually consider as part of it. But really the system that's governing our ability to actually address and our susceptibility to be affected by these things is the nervous system, the brain and nervous system. So it sort of depends on what sort of nervous system you're born with, how much load, how much capacity, how much stimulus can it hold before it breaks down. Some people are born and they can do pretty much anything and they'll be fine. Some people can't do anything and they'll be sick. And most people are on the middle.
Would that be considered is that like your constitution?
Yeah, I suppose you could say there's constitution for different areas, but you could that'd be, I would say, like, yeah, your neurological constitution, meaning that, and that would you're given that by your parents, and then maybe some of that trauma that's passed down has an effect on that. But if you have a worried, stressed parent, generally the child will pick up that from them. They might not be born that way, but they might learn to be that way as well. So there's that. So there's what you're born with, what your template is when you're born, how your development goes in utero, how it goes in birth, how it happens after birth. And the first 2 years of life is really critical for developing all our motor skills. We're just a blob. We come out of the womb, we're just a blob, literally a blob with reflex. Like anything that happens is a reflex. How we get onto our mother's nipple, that's just a reflex. They don't think about doing that. It's just stimuli and reflex. They've got the fear reflex, the moro reflex. They've got a bunch of other ones, and at about 2 to 4 months, they should be integrated within the nervous system, meaning that there's no need for them to be there anymore. They shouldn't be there after 4 months.
As in like a conscious...
It's an unconscious reflex pattern.
Yeah.
No need to be there if it's a healthy development of the nervous system. So if you see an adult who, say a door slams and they do this, and then they start sort of freaking out, they still have a neonatal reflex that should have disappeared at the age of 4. So that person is going to have a very low threshold to stress. They're going to usually they'll have lots of chronic stuff happening, lots of pain, lots of stress, lots of inflammation. So we actually need to go back in time and then sort of integrate that reflex. That's one way of looking at it as well. Then if they're all good, with their neurology, their development of the nervous system, then it's who they're around, and they start modeling who they're around. It's usually their parents and their siblings, and they mirror, basically, and usually learn how to behave in order to get what they want or to avoid what they don't want to feel. So that, again, starts to develop these limiting belief patterns, because often they're not necessarily ours, but we don't have any per se. We learn from the people around us as to how to behave in certain ways to get certain things. But this is all done really unconsciously, and what sort of effect that's going to have on them later is really hard to tell. But generally, we all know, if you grow up in an abusive family, it's going to taint how you view your world.
I think it's everything. It's like how to deal with any kinds of stress, like how to deal with good news, bad news, having lots of money, not having any money, how you spend your money, how you view your relationships, how you value things. I imagine all that would be modelled from or learnt from how you see your parents do it.
Absolutely. Definitely. And these are often the things that trip us up when we're trying to make change as well. So the neurological side of it has to be really addressed, because that's a physiological thing. So if people are saying having a hard time consciously changing, could be that they have a lot of limiting patterns or beliefs that they've learned, but also could be that their nervous system or their body is just so wired for these other patterns and behaviors that it's actually a threat for them to change. So we sort of have to move on that level. There's another really cool book I read recently called Coherence. I haven't actually read the whole thing, but just even the first chapter was awesome because it had a really cool model. And I think this guy he's a cardiologist, but he now goes in and speaks at corporate events about performance and high performance, in teams and stuff like that. And he put a really cool thing called the performance iceberg, and it's basically, the iceberg, like at the top is what you see, the behaviors, the achievements and stuff like that. That's really front of mind stuff. But below that you have, your thoughts, beliefs, feelings. Right at the bottom of it is physiology. Your physiology is not set up for you to be calm enough or appropriate in certain situations. You know what I mean? Is this making sense?
Like physiology in terms of like their body, or like
the body as a whole, the nervous system, how integrated it is, your hormonal system, your gut, all of it basically. You've got enough water in your body, if you're getting enough sleep, that's a big one.
All the physical stuff.
Are you breathing properly? So your homeostasis of your body needs to be quite good for you to be able to sort of make conscious changes towards health.
So he was saying in that sense that that's kind of the bottom fundamental. Got to have that stuff.
Yeah, and I was really cool when I liked when I saw that, because that's my view as well, and that's often what we're working with. It depends on the person. Like, for instance, I've done some work with you. It's different. Your physiology is quite good, so we can move on that sort of higher level of, making decisions and clearing through some beliefs. But other people, they have to actually, the stress has to be taken out of their system.
Yeah.
And that might take a while, depending on their personal history, before they can actually their body can actually feel safe enough to make conscious change. You know what I mean? Does that sort of answer it?
Yeah, absolutely. I like that too, because I think, like, you know what I'm like. I'm always talking about fundamentals.
Yeah.
And they're fundamentals for a reason.
Yeah.
And if we're not ticking those boxes, then, I mean, whether it's healing from trauma that we've picked up, or whether it's anything, like, I mean, I find life a challenge as it is, and I try hard to get all those fundamentals like addressed regularly. And
so what are the fundamentals for you?
Well, for me, they're sleep, which I'm starting to think is almost at like a higher priority than the rest.
Yeah.
I had Sveti Williams, a sleep scientist, on here last week.
Yeah.
And by the end of that conversation, I'm like, yeah, I think there's now one fundamental above all else, because if you're not sleeping well, like, nothing else is going to work.
No.
Right. No. So it's sleep, it's eating well, it's nutrition, it's moving, it's staying hydrated. I think there's also a part of it is doing something that fulfills you.
Whew, that's a big one.
Yeah. I think if you're doing something that is like killing your soul, it's hard to, I just feel like everything kind of breaks down, because you're not going to be motivated, you're not going to want to do those other things. It's just, so I think that's an important key, which often gets overlooked. And then environment too, like just, even just workplace, like working somewhere that you like, there's good people around, especially if you're spending a lot of time there.
100%.
But even a physical environment of like where you sleep, like I'm currently in the process of completely revamping where I sleep, because I'm spending a lot of time there.
Yeah.
And I sleep well as is, and I have a whole routine around setting up myself for a good sleep and coming out of sleep. But even just the space, making sure it's toxin free, making sure there's plenty of fresh air coming through, and those are kind of my main fundamentals. I think other people would also say working with the breath too. I could probably work with the breath more, but
well, yeah, I mean, breathing is the foundational movement. There's a quote that someone said that I've learned. I think I've heard Dr. Perry Nicholson say it, but there's other people that have said it. It's basically, if you don't own breathing, you don't own movement. And so people think it's just breathing, but there's actually massive importance in movement. You have to be able to breathe. If you see someone that stops breathing when they're exercising, they're in this limbic response, and they're not actually working properly. Yeah. The breath reflexes to everywhere else. But it's also the quickest way for us to get out of that fight-flight response and just tone down a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I love running, because I don't know, I just finally get into that flow, and then I'm like,
changes your brain rhythms.
And then all of a sudden, like, I'm working and I'm at a good rate and I'm at this pace and I like that steady state cardio, and then you can focus on your breath in those moments, and you can slow everything down a bit, unless you're going stupid pace.
Well, that's basically meditation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's cool. I mean, I've just sort of developed a bit of a concept of the 9 zones of vitality, to be actually vital and healthy. And like, it's pretty much what you said. There's nutrition, and with nutrition, it's the basics. Eat fresh vegetables. Yeah. Basically. Yeah. Foods that are easier for your body to break down. Yeah. And then it's also when you eat as much as that. It's not eating too late at night. Intermittent fasting, I think, is a massive part of it, if your system's ready for it. Simple little things. Yeah. And then what else do we have? So we had that, and then we had breathing, water, and sleep. So breathing, working on your breathing, do some conscious breathing, both for the physical side of it, but also as a tool to help control your mind. And then water intakes. I mean, younger people are finding it better, but I mean, older folk, people who are like probably my parents and older, I mean, I had someone the other day in clinic, just to get her gut moving, like the main thing I was telling her was just drink more water. And I kept having to say it. She goes like, stop telling me to drink more water. I'm like, but I don't know, it wasn't drummed in back in those days to drink how important water is. And there's books written on it. And I mean, I've taken people out of back pain just by saying, not touching them, saying, let's increase your water intake so we can, improve the large intestine, and then their back pain goes away. So simple, really, really simple stuff.
Yeah.
But people resist it. And then there's sleep as well. How long have you been sleeping? Yeah. Oh, I don't sleep. All right. Well, I think we have to focus on that first. Let's just get that sorted, and let's see what happens after that. Because I think there's sometimes just that. Well, not in pain anymore. Yeah. I feel better. Yeah. Not as anxious. Yeah. And then there's environment, which is internal as well. So if your internal environment is crap, if your detox systems aren't working properly, or if your lymphatic system is clogged up, which in Chinese medicine they would say is stagnation. Yeah. And the movement. Are you moving enough, or are you moving enough, or are you moving too much, or are you moving the right way? Yeah. So, and then there's all up to the purpose thing. Yeah. So mindset and purpose. So people need to connect. But the thing is, let's just say, I think the purpose should be. Sometimes people need to have this connection to the purpose, and it will help everything else. Yeah. But if their physiology is missing all these, like they don't eat well, their lymphatics are all blocked up. They've got mold in their environment. They're not breathing or sleeping properly. They're stressed. All those things need to be addressed to allow that bottom of the iceberg, the physiology, to support them, so they can actually feel in a front of mind state, so they can go, actually, what the hell is it that I want to do? And then, ideally, can you marry that with why you're actually here, which is a different thing. But it's actually the same thing.
How do you align those two things? What do I want to do and why am I here?
Well, they say that's what success is, isn't it? If you can bring all your passions into one. So, we'll use your career as an example. If you can bring all your passions into one place and make a job or a career out of it, I mean, you won't really work. Yeah. You never work because you're just doing what you want to do. Yeah. And you're probably going to be quite good at it. So that means you're going to make probably some good money. So that's the ideal. How do you bring that in? Well, that's the thing. What is it you want to do? You're going to have to determine whether is that an ego thing? Is that what you think you want to do, or is it actually what you truly want to do from the heart? That's a bit of trial and error. I think that's a bit of toing and froing.
Do you think a bit of that is just sitting with those thoughts for a bit? Like you ask people. You always talk, what do you actually enjoy doing? And then, I don't think people ask themselves that question very often.
What is it you think about all the time?
Yeah.
Generally, that's hopefully if it's something sort of positive, not negative, but generally what you find you can't help doing is probably what you're passionate about or can't help thinking about and you just would do anyway. Yeah, is probably what you should try and find if there's a job or a career that allows you to do that. Yeah. And then it should be almost like a calling, meaning that it's not so logical, like, should I do this or shouldn't I do this? That's logical. But all the best decisions I've ever made in my life have been just like intuitive from the heart, just do it. Like with the army, for instance, a long time ago, completely different now, but that experience was defining for me. I was like, no, as if I go to the army, it's for idiots. Like nerds go to do that stuff. One day I just woke up, I was like, I'm going to do it. I did, and then that was that, and then came back and to study kinesiology, to go into the sort of complementary medicine side of things, same sort of thing. I was being pulled towards it. And it just so happens that it actually perfectly suits my type of thinking. It's problem solving, it's quite big, it's expansive. And we've got to the point now where, I don't really ever feel like I'm going to work. Actually, the only time I get tired is if I put too many sessions in a day, but generally it's just, oh yeah, cool, just going to do my thing, get paid for it, that's cool, so, but that hasn't always been like that for me, so it's been a process. And even with what people don't understand with actually following through on your dreams and your thing, it's actually going to be hard. It's meant to be hard, and you're meant to get resistance, but a lot of people get the resistance and just run away, and they quit basically. But you're actually, every time you get met with resistance, you're about to learn something quite good about yourself. You just have to bear with it. And I mean, I had something today that I had to learn about, and it hit my ego a little bit, but I know I'll learn something tomorrow that will make sense of what happened today. And if people can have that attitude, I think that's why you only see a small percentage of people doing it, because I think those people have that threshold to be able to just play the long game, like just go see what's ahead and go, it's going to be a little bit tough here, a little bit of to and fro. And if you are going out and doing what you want to do, and people around you, like your family, are not, then they might not like that.
Yeah.
As hard as that is to hear and accept, they might not be happy for you.
Or they also might shoot down in flames a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because they're going to paint, well, that might not work out. It might, don't get your hopes up, sort of stuff like that. So, but that's just really them projecting onto you. So you have to be able to see the long game and just go.
I actually find sometimes, like even at the moment, and it's only really one other person I've spoken to about, so maybe I won't get into it now, but something's brewing. When we talk about alignment, sometimes I find it's like, or at least where I'm at, it's like maybe there's like a 2-degree shift in one direction. Tony Robbins always says, like if you make a 2-degree shift now over a period of years, it's quite big.
Yeah.
And something's brewing at the moment, and it's the kind of thing that I don't feel like I want to tell anyone about it, because for that exact reason. Like I know what I need to do, and I know who I need to do it with and who's involved and whatever, and it's like, no, I'm just going to go and do that thing. And I don't need to tell my friends or certain family or whatever. It's like, because I just know what I'm going to get, and there's just no point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
until you get to a certain level, then you can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's what I've learned, had to learn to do more and more. If you're someone that goes out and is trying to forge ahead and develop mastery in different areas of your life, you're probably going to fail a lot more than other people.
Yeah.
But you don't really see it as failure anyway, but people around you who are uncomfortable with failure, or going out there and getting, trying and then it not working, will see that as a bad thing. But people who go out there and actually do this, it's not a bad thing at all. It's just a lesson. It's part of it. It means you're getting closer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're either winning or you're learning, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think playing the long game is a big one that I've had to learn over the years, and definitely didn't have when I was younger. It's like, your eyes are only here. So, being able to see what's ahead, if you just keep plodding away, like you said, and knowing if you do, I'm sure you'll be way further probably than you even thought. 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead.
Yeah, for me, that like you were saying, some people, if they have that purpose defined, then everything else flows from that.
Yeah.
And maybe you said other people are like that. It definitely helps me having a thing like this is where I'm going, and then that kind of flows into what I'm doing at the moment.
Yes.
Instead of doing stuff now.
But if you were in chronic back pain and you were
different
anxious,
story. Yeah.
your brain would be kind of be going, nah, I'm worried about these guys more than that thing. I want to do that, but I actually have to focus on these things first. And that's where I see a lot of people. That's where most of my clients are at, where they're in some state of distress and their nervous system is in fight or flight. They're in inflammation. We just got to get them to a point where their body's actually doing it for them, and then we can focus on going ahead and then achieving this purpose, and then finding all these unconscious sort of, what we call them, limiting beliefs, which are basically like anchors.
Yeah.
They're just anchors, and then we've got bunches of them.
Yeah, this is why I love juice fasting so much, and why I'm an advocate of it. Because when I did my first juice fast, it was like someone had like pulled up the veil. It's like when you get your driver's license for the first time. It's like, how do I just go 18 years without having one of these? It was like that when I did my first juice fast. I didn't realize it at the time, but very quickly after doing that, and then a couple months later, I did another one, and then within this period of like 6 months, I'd like cleaned up my shit. And through doing that,
literally,
yeah, there's still some work to do, but and through doing that, then like you said, that end goal purpose thing was much clearer.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I just know that when you clean that stuff up and you get those fundamentals right, then you're in a position to take action.
Yeah, definitely. And that was probably the area that you needed to clean up. I mean, like I said, there's probably around 9 zones. There's a few that I didn't discuss, but at some level we'll be dysfunctional and more functional in other areas, and we need to find where the main faults are, and then go after that, and then sort of everything starts to balance out a bit, and just keep going until you're relatively balanced through all those areas. Gut's been a big one that I've been focusing on myself this year as well. So I cut out no coffee, no alcohol, and what else was there? Yeah, no cheese and no cured meat. So for me, that's like huge. No cheese is massive. So from that, I've noticed a big difference, and then even doing colonics as well has been part of it as well, and intermittent fasting. Yeah. That's probably the most crazy, like, full-on thing I've done for my health. Where I'm sitting there going, am I actually doing this? Yep, I'm doing it. So, yeah, the first one I had with those, it was like a spiritual experience.
The colonic.
Yeah, man. It's like, it was old stuff coming out. So, yeah.
What do you...
got better as I've moved through it, and it's helped a lot of things as well. So.
What did your friends say to you when you told them you had a colonic that day?
Some people were just looking at me like, "What are you doing?" Like okay, like. And some people were like, "Oh, it's really good. I've done them," you know. But it was for me. It was the next thing that I hadn't done. I'll give it a try, see how it works. It's like these as well. It's all part of it.
How you going with the heat?
Good. I like it.
Comfy?
Yeah, I mean, it just reminds me of like being, like I said, all those first like years of my 20s and stuff. And even like through high school, I was always sweating because I was always running around doing stuff. So kind of miss it, actually.
It's nice to just have a good sweat. Do you want to go hotter, or are you comfy?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
See how we go.
We'll go for 50. Otherwise, we'll start talking Chinese if we get to 55.
Really?
No, we'll be right. If you want to go hotter, just turn it up.
Okay.
So how is it then that this is probably bread and butter for you, but it's still something that I'm fascinated by? Because for me, I grew up in an Italian household. Everything was very physical, and when we talk about fundamentals, it's always like real stuff. Change the physical things you put in your mouth and drink more physical water. How is it then that all of our physical issues are often manifested from emotional issues or limiting beliefs and thoughts that we have? How does that actually work?
Oh, that could be a big rabbit hole, man. And how does that work? Well, there's multiple, like with everything, there's multiple ways to explain things. I'll stick with how I need to say it, but
like the classic one, I was reading about this. There's an author, Ines Segal. She has a few amazing books. She has a few good books on energetics, and I was reading all about it, and I was doing some little practices and things at home, and then my mum had to get a hip replacement, like out of the blue. In like 6 months, her hip just went to crap, and she had to get a replacement. And so I looked up the energetics associated with that, and it was something like not moving forward on a big life decision.
Yeah.
And that was 100% the situation my mum was in.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
Well, there's that. Yeah, there's definitely, the body is essentially a mirror of the mind, a mirror of the unconscious mind. There's a few people that've said that it's essentially your body is a slow mind. So it's essentially expressing now what you were thinking and feeling 10 years ago, and what you do now your body will be in 10 years, which is pretty cool in a way. And I've sort of can see that and resonate with that, actually. I've seen it in myself, and I've seen it in lots of clients. And
it's kind of frightening, actually.
Yeah, it is. So if you're living healthy now, then you're setting up a good future. There are obviously, why do certain areas relate to certain things? Well, some of it is sort of more common sense. Some of it is to do with, like, so we have energy meridians and pathways that go up and down our body on both sides of our body. And those meridians usually have related physiology and related psychology. So generally, if you just follow the channel and you know the energy channel and you know what the psychology and the physiology is of it, then you'll see symptoms on that area. For instance, like people with really tight jaws, that's stress in general. But what does stress affect? Well, it's really the liver in Chinese medicine. And if we are not sleeping well and we're just obviously we're just constantly doing, not really spending enough time with ourselves, then the liver gets stressed, and the liver chi and blood rises to the head, and we can often get irritable and angry and just tell people to fuck off, basically. And sorry, I don't know if you could swear.
No, go for it, mate.
So often working on the liver or draining the liver will help the jaw pain, or getting the person to express themselves properly, getting them to do something like the morning pages where they're actually expressing what they want to express, not filtering it and editing it. So that's one example. But how does it all happen? Why does it happen that way as well? There's a neurobiological explanation to it as well. So we have receptors in the body. We have exteroreceptors. They're the ones that are picking up the heat in this room. And we have proprioceptors, so the ones in our joints in our body. And we have interoreceptors, and they're essentially inside. They're in the skin as well, but they're actually inside the brain and also the organ system. So when we have, the question was, how does a psychological thing cause a physical issue? Yeah. So at the top, when we have, an experience, an emotional experience of, say, trauma, there's a part of the brain called the limbic system which will fire up. And it will choose a context, whether that will be fear or anger or whatever it is, guilt, grief, because you've lost someone. At the same time, that's essentially the boss. It's the boss of your homeostatic system. It's your emotional memory system. At that same time, you're going to get changes in your diaphragm, which is the second most powerful system. Diaphragm system, it'll change your respiratory rate. It'll change how your body gets rid of acids and alkaline in the body. So all that's happening. That will change your posture as well. Then you're going to get some gastrointestinal changes at the same time. So it could be in one of the digestive organs. It could be in all of them. It's going to change how your circadian system works, how your balance system works, even the fluid homeostasis in the body.
Like fluid retention and with
like lack of flow of water,
blood, all that stuff.
Exactly. Right. Mainly water, hydration, so water and electrolyte balance. And then finally it will arise at the tissue level. Yeah. So
that could all happen over a period of years.
It could happen over a period of years, or it could happen instantaneously. So for instance, if you had a car accident and you got a bit of whiplash inside, the tightness of that neck, you've got, fear or something, or because you're experiencing fear as it happens. And there's also all the other systems are affected. You'll clamp down on your digestive system.
You'll start breathing more shallow.
So there's like essentially a string of dysfunction, we'll call it. So the emotion was fear. It's related to tight neck muscles and weak on the one side, and then it's also related to the diaphragm. It's doing something there. It's doing something in the gastrointestinal system. So if that's not addressed, the body will just compensate, because that's what it does.
It's amazing at doing that.
Brilliant compensator.
Yeah.
We won't even notice that. We'll just go, I had a car accident. It was really scary. And I had to go see my osteo afterwards to just work on my neck. Cool. All good. Everything's all good. Is it? I don't know. Maybe it just really depends on their history before that and how they sort of cope with stress. But you can imagine essentially that people that become quite sick have just this tapestry of all these little micro traumas that have emotional context, and they're having physiological effects. And they're like a line. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like, and it starts with the limbic system, the emotional system first, essentially.
So then when they experience fear in other contexts as well, I imagine it would send off the same chain reaction based on how they deal with fear and have dealt with fear in the past.
Exactly. So, that's exactly right. So there'll be all these sort of reflexive pathways within the brain which have well, in fear you do this, your posture will do this, or you'll run away or whatever. And then the more, so essentially it's like then even your emotional system can project something out there. This is where communication problems come in all the time, is people are often not listening to the person, they're listening to the voice in their head projecting what they think is going to happen, and so then there's a miscommunication issue. And does that make does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so we often assume a lot, but the body's a lot more complicated than that. It's got a lot of complexity to it. So we need to actually tune into that and ask it what's going on. Essentially, that's why I love doing what I do. I don't assume. We just have a conversation. We work out what's actually happening, and then we bring the body back to balance.
And so, if someone, say they're always having this same fear response, do you have to go back to the initial? The initial one. Is that where the pattern begins?
Yeah, look, it could. Yeah, it could be a single event or a series of events.
Right. So a couple of years ago, I took over this business, and that was extremely stressful. And I handled that by working long hours, drinking coffee, and having a mindset of go. And now I find
compensating, yeah.
Right, exactly. And so now I find whenever I'm dealing with stress, I'm like, oh, I can deal with this. I'll just drink coffee and work hard and get through it. That's just my go-to.
Get on with it. It's a typical Aussie way. So
yeah. So is it like if we get back to that first time when shit went down, that's the best place to sort of unpack it and unravel it? And
it would be cool to actually erase that initial traumatic event if that's still buzzing in the system. So that you can have one event from 20 years ago that is essentially still firing in the nervous system as it's happening now. So in that instance, it's good to actually release it till the system, so it can go back to a normal response. And from that moment onwards, then you can basically, there will be a bunch of, so if you have one instance, then you're already in compensation. So you might actually people often attract more things to them. So there'll be a bunch of different things. Essentially, at its simplest, the nervous system is always dealing with micro traumas in order just to keep us functioning and alive. And depending on your constitution will depend on how much of that plays out as an actual condition or a physical ailment.
Or how much you're like in that state as well.
In that stress state? Yeah.
Well, whatever state it is.
Yeah.
GoPros have had enough. You know, like I had this moment the other day when I hadn't been drinking coffee for a while, and then I had a period of 3 days where I was drinking coffee. And so therefore I was more in like reactive mode and stimulated and overall like feeling a sense of stress or even panic because, I don't know, for whatever reason. And then like on the third day, then like another big stressful thing arrived. And I was like, man, that's just because I was acting from that state. I just attracted that thing in.
Potentially, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely. And that's good awareness to even have that. But I mean, we tend to revert to, you know, when we all get stress. Stress is normal. It's good. We need to have stress. You actually learn more in stress. You know, use stress to push you to the edge, sit at the edge, and then you'll grow. We need to have that. People who avoid stress will actually generally be more stressed anyway. So I think I lost where I was going. Where we were going with that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. See, when it gets to 50 degrees, man, it all starts to get a bit curly. That's good.
I was going somewhere with it. I forgot.
Yeah, I don't know. We were talking about stress, and there was some stress in there at some point. I was just saying, like I felt like I attracted that in because I was in that stress state.
You got me there. Yeah. Okay, cool. I was talking to a client this morning, and for instance, she they tend to revert back to our normal default mode. So what people will either become really emotional under stress, or some people will become super logical in order to try and control and understand why they're under stress, and or feeling emotion. And if you're trying to logicalize an emotion, it doesn't actually make sense. It's illogical anyway. But if you're trying to, the logical mind is always trying to like associate things. It's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. I had this client today, and she's a very successful person, and essentially something happened where she did something, but the members of the public were upset about it. So she's actually going around and looking at all their social media and looking at this person and this person and this person and this person and what they're saying and what they're saying. And then the mind's getting dragged into all these other dramas. And so she's not able to be in the right brain to be able to see the big picture. Yeah. Which is essentially what she's doing. She just needs to, she can't control that. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
That's like a downward spiral going into the Facebook comments.
Yeah. I mean, as an athlete, that's not, if you're a professional athlete, they say you see the ones they have an injury or something, or they do something stupid. Yeah. And then they start reading the comments and you notice their form is not as good and, you know, what happened to that guy? And then the other ones that just you know, don't look at that sort of stuff. Don't get involved. Exactly. They just focused on themselves and seems to just go rolling off the back.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that whole social media thing is just, you know, causes issues. It's like a weird world. I mean, you like tap into people's energies in those things. It's like, why am I even like getting involved with this? Sensing that person's unhappiness or whatever it is.
Well, people don't, even just doing that, like just looking at social media is, you know, it's been proven to put you in an anxious or depressed state.
Yeah. This whole thing does. You know, I was chatting with Michaela on the podcast yesterday, and we're talking about phones. Like, this is just a stressful experience now. Just going in here.
Yeah.
Like
emails,
text messages. Like, this is a work phone for me, so texts are about work. Facebook, that's about work. Like, it's just stressful. Just going in that. I just look at this as like, oh, this is just my daily stress tablet. So I'm trying to spend less time in that thing. Or and it all tries to get your attention as well.
Yeah, you got to look at the next thing. You got to get that dopamine hit.
Yeah, I know. It's painful. So that was. I feel like I'm going to re-listen to that because that was fascinating, actually. So, moving on from that, what are you doing in your day-to-day? Because I think you're like probably one of the healthiest looking people I know.
Really?
Yeah. You're always very like clean complexion. You're well built. You obviously have strength. You're very calm.
Yeah.
So whatever you're doing, it's working, mate.
What am I doing for that? Yeah, I mean,
just like your day to day. Like, what are your rituals? What are your routines? What are your daily things?
So, essentially, on my day to days would be, I'm not moving as much as I normally do, but I don't sort of really need to. I try to intermittent fast every day. It's 14 to 17 hours generally. I probably might miss it 1 or 2 days a week. I find I'm okay with that. I did go through a period where I was so militant about that. I had my tracker and I was 16 to 18 hours. But I found like that was causing me a bit stress, like to be militant about that. So it's about having a bit of balance. But my body does respond to intermittent fasting. The meditation I don't do every day. I'd probably do it 4 days. Coming up, I'm going to try and do another stint of like, say, a few months straight. But with that, I do a really simple meditation. It's literally breathing in for 6 seconds, breathing out for 6 seconds. And that is as much about what it does physiologically as it's calming. It just essentially integrates the brain and the heart. I try to do that whenever I'm on public transport. A big thing for me has been recently in the last few months, and it sounds really simple, but just on YouTube, there was this like motivational one, 30-minute one, and it was really good. Everything as I
meditation.
It's basically a motivational playlist. Just one guy repeating all these statements over and over. I am that blah blah. I am lovable. I am successful. All this, they're all really good statements, and it goes for 30 minutes. And I've been doing that for the last few months. It's really cool with that one because I'll do it if I catch a train, I'll just do it on the walk to the train and on the walk home. So it's about 20 minutes a day, and that has shifted a lot of stuff for me. It's essentially like pruning or gardening for the mind, because even if I'm not directly paying attention, my unconscious is hearing that. Over time, my world has shifted with that as well. But like I said, this year has been looking after the gut. I'm exercising way less, although I still maintain a good level of fitness and strength. The reason why I don't exercise that much is because I am quite mentally active. I do have quite a lot on, and if I actually push myself too hard physically, my mental capacity will go down. So basically trying to practice what I preach. I mean, I used to be an animal on the physical level, like an absolute animal. like people used to look at me in the gym and just go, "What the hell is that guy doing? He's a crazy person."
You're eating cornflakes and running up hills in the army, mate.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, just doing like CrossFit and all that sort of stuff and getting right into it.
Yeah.
You know, it was good. Learned a lot from it, but now it's just literally so much in. My whole days are framed around. Every day is about managing my energy and my intent, so I can do my work with my clients and focus on other projects and try and have a bit of energy for my family as well. Because if I'm lacking energy at any time, I just can't give my best to my family or to. So I've peeled right back. I'm still quite active, busy, but I've actually peeled right back in what I do. Like even the other day, I had a client, and it was another one to go, and halfway through that session, I just knew I wasn't ready. I could finish this session, but I knew I couldn't do the other one, so I just had to say, just reschedule it, because my mind was sort of not 100% there. So it's all about quality for me these days. So yeah, it's pretty simple. It's not that extravagant. When I move, I try to do complex movement. Try to be able to pull myself up on things. So gymnastic rings and stuff like that.
How's your muscle up?
I lost it. I used to have it, but I lost it because my shoulder mechanics were really bad, but I was compensating. I'll probably get it back, but I'm doing other sort of ring dips and stuff like that. But water intake's massive, and then really consistent with my sleep. That's pretty much it, man.
Do you have a routine around your sleep?
It's always at 10 or 10:30. Like it's always the same sort of time. So it might be a little bit later than normal. So, but they say any time before 10:30, your liver starts its detox. Then, if I go to bed any later than that, I'm not good. If I go to bed too early, it's not the best either. I'm just consistent. It's always at that same time. So I'll get 8 hours, feel pretty refreshed. Yeah,
it's good to go to bed at the same time.
Yeah,
every day. Wake up.
Sleep hygiene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why is so much of kinesiology based on Eastern style medicine?
Why is it?
Is that like where it sort of came from?
No, kinesiology. The word means the study of movement. Right. So if you were to go to America and say Nick's a kinesiologist, they'd be like, "Oh, cool. What sports team do you work in?"
Okay.
So they actually literalize it over there.
Yeah.
So a kinesiologist is like a human movement expert in America, and even around here, like in the sort of scientific world, that's what they would be, and it's a true representation of the word.
Yeah.
But what happened in the 1960s? Actually, it was a chiropractor named Dr. George Goodhart, and he basically combined a lot of systems together, and he worked out sort of by trial and error this whole system. It's really cool system called applied kinesiology. Essentially applying the knowledge of the body and how it works and through all the different systems. This was called AK, applied kinesiology. And he realized when he was working with muscles that certain muscles would be weak or not working properly when certain organs were under stress. And then looked at the acupuncture system, and they had mapped meridian pathways so that you have a certain muscle that's paired with a certain organ.
Okay.
And that's actually not even energetic. That's actually neurological as well. Like you will get shared nerve roots into organs and muscles.
Yeah.
Viscerosomatic
sheaths and those kind of things.
Viscerosomatic loops. So he just built from that. And so because the acupuncture system was already there, it was a system that's been around for a long time. He used it as a navigation system of that's what it is essentially. That's what the acupuncture system is. It's a navigation system as to where dysfunction is in the body and why it's there. So with kinesiology, you can just essentially have a communication with the nervous system to find where these faults are in the system, where the software faults are. Software engineer, that's all it is. So most people don't realize that, if you have an injury, tissues heal. Tissues always heal, unless you're really sick. Tissues heal. If you're experiencing pain after a few weeks, it's a software issue. The tissue's healed, and you have a software signaling issue up to the brain.
A nervous system kind of thing.
What could be causing that, though? There could be, like we were talking about before, there could be organ changes, there could be organs under stress, glands under stress, particular parts of the body, the brain itself. Yeah. So he developed that system, put in that, a bit of work on the lymphatics, work on the vascular system, lots more structural work, working with the cranial bones and the TMJ and the spine itself. And there's a whole bunch of chiropractors worldwide which practice this way, and it's very different to your standard chiropractic where they crack. They generally just will find out where the faults are, give people really quick treatments. Yeah, the one I learned kinesiology was based on that. That's sort of the core of it, but then it went even deeper into the real theory of the acupuncture system through the study of the ancient classics and stuff like that. So
that's just how it kind of developed over the years.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great systems out there, and people just sort of they're learning, and then they're sort of putting their own spin on it. And I've learned a lot of them too. So you get a lot from each one. So yeah,
nice.
How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah,
I'm feeling relaxed actually. My day was hectic up until this point, and now I think yours was too. Yeah,
I was just all going from one thing to the next. I was a little bit, I was like got a bit discombobulated when I came here, so I feel like this is really good. It's very healthy.
It's been comfortable. So to end with a bit of a crazy one, you said you used to go pretty hard with the CrossFit, and you're an animal. What was sort of the craziest thing you've done in the pursuit of your health and wellness? Have you done some out there kind of stuff?
Well, that's also it was that colonic. Yeah, that's probably it's something I never thought I would do, but I was intrigued by it. But it's just so bizarre. But I see the benefit of it. But I just never thought I'd be doing it. So that is probably the craziest thing I've done in terms of like physical feats in the pursuit of fitness. Well, we had to do stuff because we had to. So
gas masks in the army sounds pretty.
Yeah, and they were just sort of forced to do that. But in the pursuit of it, I remember doing some of the CrossFit sort of games, regionals and stuff like that, just training for that, just pushing yourself just past it, like being... There was a period in my mid-20s after I left the army where I was working as a full-time personal trainer, like I had my own business. But in the mornings I would work for as a garbage collector, not garbage, but recycling. It was awesome. It's like, obviously I would never do garbage, that thing really stinks. But we were essentially on the back of a recycling truck, and would be the runners essentially. And we would run 15 Ks minimum per morning shift, and you'd throw in all these bins. So it was like the best workout. But every day used to be that. Then I'd go to the beach, chill out, have a surf, whatever, and then go and do my clients up until the evening, till quite late, and then I would do some sort of crazy CrossFit workout. Then I would probably go out with my friends and then maybe get a few hours sleep, and then that was just normal. That was part of my 20s. So there's no way I could do that now. So I'm definitely not as extreme on that level, because that job itself was physically really hard, and it just, I couldn't believe how much, looking back on it, how much energy I actually had to do that. Like, it's crazy. I divert my energy in different ways these days. It's more up here.
Is the reason that you couldn't do that nowadays is just because you'd be so much more aware of how you felt after punishing your body like that?
Absolutely. And it's also, there is a bit of wear and tear.
Yeah.
And it, because I'm more of a mental person these days, I wouldn't be able to do my job. I wouldn't have as much, I've got more people. I want a young daughter, family and all that sort of stuff. I wouldn't be able to be there as much for them. And I'd want to curl up into a ball and have a rest, but you just can't do that now. So you have to really manage your equilibrium as much as you can.
Yeah, you always hear people say that, like, oh, I couldn't do that these days. Or I even say it when someone asks if I want to have a drink. It's like, I'll have 2 drinks, dude, and I'm going to feel like shit tomorrow. I don't want to have 2 drinks.
Yeah.
But I'm always checking myself, is that just because I don't drink as much as I used to, or anywhere near as much, and therefore I just notice the effects more, or is it just because I'm older and I'm not clearing the poison out as quickly as I used to?
It's a bit of both. Yeah. But it's I feel like I can do these physical feats again. I actually feel like, even, like I say, going back to this long game, I've been working my way through all these things that I've developed over the years. And my body's getting a lot more balanced and in line. And I would like to even have a comeback to sort of some adventure type racing in my, late 30s, early 40s. You see people do that all the time, and your body's generally quite robust and has a lot of muscle memory there. So I actually think people can do it.
Yeah.
You just have to have the right resources there in their body and their lifestyle set up around it.
So we're going to go and run an ultra marathon together or something?
Maybe not an ultra, but adventure racing really appeals to me. There's kayak, sort of climb, run, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that appeals to me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. we'll see what happens with that.
Are there races where you do multiple modalities in the one?
Yeah. You'll kayak and you'll climb and then you'll run and then a few other bits and pieces. Depends on the skill set. It depends on where it is. But.
So what's next for you then? You've been kinesiologing, if that's a verb, for some time now, and I feel like you're always expanding into bigger, better things. You've written plenty of coursework. What's coming up?
Yeah, well, I am sort of moving into a different phase with my career. I think I'm always going to be working as a practitioner on some level. I love to be on the tools, and that just allows me to learn a lot from my clients and keep learning. More writing is ahead. Maybe more books, textbooky sort of like online approaches. That'll probably be a while away. But the next actual project that I'm moving into now is moving into actually building a retreats company where we hold holistic health retreats starting off with Bali, but places like that, so sort of essentially in paradise, and it's in a controlled environment for 7 days where people will essentially learn about and apply all these 9 zones of vitality, learn out where their faults are, learn where their faults are, learn how to address them. They'll get one-to-one therapy sessions, and it will be tailored sort of for them. So for me, that is the perfect next step because I've always wanted a job with travel. I'm expanding my network internationally. So it's sort of, like we said, it's combining all the things that I want to do, and then teaching as well, to keep teaching, but to more the general public if they want it, or people who are not necessarily students learning a modality. Because I really feel like on a heart level and a like a calling level that the world needs this information. And there's a lot of stuff going on with the world right now, and if more people start to wake up and action this sort of stuff, then and connect with their dream, there's going to be less and less, hopefully, drama and turmoil in the world. So, yeah.
More alignment overall.
Yeah. So that's going to keep building, and that's going to allow for different types of freedoms for me, and more travel, which is awesome, and more linking with more and more practitioners around the world, building a network there. But I'll still always have my clinic space. So, yeah.
Good, because I might need to call in every now and then.
Well, you can come to the retreat, man.
Yeah, retreat sounds good.
Yeah, so
that's beautiful. That's nice. Yeah. So if people want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Just got a website that's sort of recently set up. It's functionalneurohealth.com. Functional Neurohealth, that's my business. There's contact forms on that.
Cool.
And then the retreat is Integrated Vitality Retreats as well. Okay. Integrated Vitality Retreats. So we can post that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So they're the 2 ways you can contact me. I'm not that active on social media. This is something that I hope to get better on in the next year.
Oh, it's a big downward spiral from there, mate.
Yeah.
You're going to be on the gram every day before you know it.
Yeah, well, apparently I'm getting interviewed on certain TV stations soon, but so we'll see what happens with that. So,
cool.
Yeah, there's a bit of honouring that there's resistance to that, but also knowing that that's where I need to go. So,
Beautiful. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thanks, brother. I feel good.
Yeah, I'm feeling relaxed.
Cheers, mate.